So, I have one question for you guys. What the hell is this? Before we can answer that question, here's a quick word from our sponsor. You've been fooled, because today's sponsor is me. I'd really appreciate it if you guys liked the video. It does a lot for this YouTube channel, and it costs you absolutely nothing. It's absolutely free. It takes like 5 seconds. I just need you to like the video. That's all. I'd really appreciate it, and thank you for liking. Now, on to the video. Okay, now that we're back, again, what the hell is this? It's a square. It's literally just a square. How did this become so goddamn iconic for generations? Well, I think the first thing of note is this fucker, this D-pad. This control method, now known as the D-pad or directional pad, this is the first controller, I believe, to use anything like this. It was made by Gunpei Yokoi for one of the Game & Watches, and they implemented it here for 4-directional movement for this console, and that's really interesting. Really revolutionary technology here, despite how simple this truly is. Also the A button and B button for multiple uses in video games. And then so here is the start and select button, made out of this soft rubber plastic, or I think it's actually just straight rubber, but made from this rubber that is really nice to press, opposed to the plastic, like shiny plastic around it. And then the actual controller itself is a rough shell. But yeah, this thing feels incredibly terrible in the hands. I'm gonna be like, how did a square, how did a pure rectangle just become so prolific and iconic? Like that's insane to me. Because this thing, dude, imagine fucking playing like Mega Man on this thing or Mario, and dude, the corners are digging into my palms right now, dude. That's freaking crazy, okay? But then also, like, what this thing looks so boring, okay? Like, quite genuinely, it looks extremely boring. It's so uninteresting to the eye. I mean, I liked how they tried to add flavor with this line texture and having the outline be a different color than this, but like, bro, this thing is just a gray square with red circles on it. That is so boring. At least nowadays. Back then, I guess it wasn't as boring. What's interesting is that this is a redesigned version from the Japanese original Famicom from Nintendo. And so that means that it has a completely different look to it, a completely different shape and feel, that kind of fits the original design of the NES, with this kind of representing the lines on the actual console, where you would plug in the controller. Speaking of, this is the classic version of it, because I don't own an original NES. This thing is crazy and simple. Really simple. That's why I'm struggling to find things to say about it. It's astounding how much you can do with this for how little buttons there are. Every console after this had way more buttons than this, which is really interesting, and I think is another development of gaming that is quite fascinating, really. But if you look at stuff before this even, if we look at the Atari 2600 and its stick and button, we can see that, I mean, this does have more buttons than that, right? It has start and select and a B button, and then the D-pad kind of acts as the stick. If we look at games on the original NES, for instance, Super Mario, right? That game, you mainly just do left and right, but mainly just right. And then B to run and A to jump, and that's it. I'm not sure if you could press select or start to pause the game. I don't know on the original NES, but it shows that you didn't need that many buttons to accomplish a lot, but you still needed more than Atari's. Cause holy shit, that thing looks like a nightmare to play with. But yeah, this thing is really simple, and I'm surprised that it lasted for so many games. Now, I know that there were multiple controllers during the NES era. There's a lot of different variants. For instance, I know that there was the dog bone, which was a circular version of this, which thank God for my palm. But then they slanted this. They slanted it so it was like up here, I think, or like the B button and A button's like here instead of here, which is weird as fuck. But you know, whatever. And then there was also another version of the NES controller, which was like a big pad. I think it had like a stick on it, and it had a slow mode option, which basically just paused the game again. It paused the game over and over again, which allowed the game to be in slow motion, which was piss poor for any Mega Man fans out there, because Mega Man is one of the games where something would pop up on the pause screen, and so if you constantly have that going, you constantly pause the game, it's just going to bring up that menu over and over again, which is not ideal. But yeah, I don't know how much more I can get out of talking about this thing. I mean, the great thing about this version specifically is that you can hook this up to a Wiimote and then use it for a classic game. If you downloaded some NES games on your Wii, you can use it to play those, and this would be really good for those actually, because it's the actual controller for that console, which is really nice that this controller has that ability using the same port. But yeah, there's not much else to say about this thing. It's very bland and basic. I mean, you've probably heard everything I've said repeated before by other people. But, you know, I think it's interesting to look at it in a vacuum, because this did do a lot for gaming. Like, every controller now has a D-pad, which is revolutionary. And I believe this was one of, if not the first controller to do start and select, which is interesting to look at. And to see the evolution of controllers in the future, this is a good thing to look at and understand why a lot of things are like this. And so, yeah, that's the video. That's an NES controller, and you know, if you thought this video was interesting or just liked watching it, maybe consider liking the video, subscribing would be cool. I'd like subscriptions. But yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye.